The night the police lights painted my driveway blue, I realized a neighbor's poodle could bark louder than any siren. I wasn't in trouble yet, but the accusation was. According to the woman across the cul-de-sac, my rescue shepherd had started a barking war and provoked her purebred into emotional distress. That was the exact phrase the officer read from the complaint. Emotional distress. From a dog. I stood there in gym shorts, holding a leash, wondering how a 10-second woof turned into a 911 call. It had started as a normal evening. Sunset, grills smoking, kids biking in circles. My dog Atlas barked once when the mail truck rattled past. Across the hedge, a cloud of white fur, her poodle, Princess, answered with a high-pitched chorus that echoed off the garages. I shushed Atlas, she shushed me. Then she filmed us, phone held like a courtroom exhibit. 5 minutes later, 2 cruisers rolled in. She marched out with a printed HOA rule sheet and a speech about noise, violations, and selective enforcement. The officers were polite, confused, and clearly tired. They asked me to keep Atlas inside for the night. Case closed, right? Wrong. As they left, she smirked and said, "Next time, I'll call the board." The board. Our HOA ran like a mini monarchy. Fines appeared faster than weeds, and appeals vanished like socks in a dryer. By morning, an email arrived. Notice of potential violation. Animal. Disturbance. Princess had barked all night. Atlas slept like a rock. Guess who got blamed? I tried the reasonable route. I knocked. No answer. I emailed the HOA with timestamps from my door camera. No reply. By afternoon, a bright orange warning tag fluttered on my mailbox, demanding a hearing and hinting at a $200 fine. That's when I decided to document everything. By dusk, the cul-de-sac buzzed. Curtains twitched. Group chats lit up with theories. Training collars, ultrasonic whistles, secret vendettas. Nobody asked me. They asked her, and she told them I was reckless, that Atlas lunged at shadows, that peace required punishment. I set up a small drone over my yard, not to spy, just to record sound levels and timestamps. Every bark had a clock. Every yip had a decibel reading. The data painted a funny picture. Her poodle was the loudest thing on the block, and my shepherd barely registered. But evidence only matters if someone sees it. So I made sure they would. I printed screenshots, laminated them, and scheduled a meeting. Then I had an idea so petty it felt like justice with a propeller. If the HOA loved tickets, I would give them tickets, delivered from the sky, one envelope at a time. By Saturday morning, the HOA hearing was scheduled for Tuesday, and the fine was pending investigation. Translation: guilty with paperwork. I gathered my evidence like a trial lawyer with a backpack, audiographs, timestamps, and a timeline showing Princess's nightly opera. My neighbor, meanwhile, canvassed the block with a clipboard, collecting signatures about the barking. Menace. She never mentioned whose dog barked more. She never mentioned the police had already shrugged. I flew the drone at noon to calibrate. It hovered above my lawn, capturing ambient sound and the poodle's yaps ricocheting off vinyl siding. I labeled files with simple names. Mail truck char atlas 1 woof.mp3, princess 5-minute solo.wav. When the wind shifted, the truth shifted with it, straight toward her porch. I didn't cross property lines. I didn't aim cameras at windows. I just let the microphone listen. Monday evening, the HOA posted bright yellow notices on 3 doors. Mine, hers, and the community center. Animal disturbance. Hearing tomorrow. That was new. She called it a victory. I called it an opening. The drone swarm wasn't a fleet. It was 3 palm-sized flyers borrowed from friends who loved gadgets and hated bullies. We programmed them to follow a gentle loop over my yard and the common greenbelt, carrying lightweight envelopes clipped to their legs. Inside each envelope, a copy of the sound chart, a screenshot of the timestamps, and a polite note that read, "Please review before tomorrow's hearing." At sunset, Princess began her encore. The drones lifted like fireflies. One by one, they glided to mailboxes, not dropping, just placing. The effect was theatrical without being rude. Neighbors stepped out. Phones rose. Somebody laughed. Somebody clapped. The poodle kept singing. Within minutes, the group chat exploded. "So it's the poodle? Look at the decibels. Why did the cops come for the shepherd?" A retired engineer replied with a graph of his own, taken from his porch, confirming the pattern. The narrative flipped. She stormed across the street, demanding I land my machines. I did. I handed her an envelope. She tore it open and read the chart. For the first time, her voice dropped. "This isn't fair," she said. I agreed. "That why we bringing receipts." That night, the barking stopped. Not because of discipline, but because of awareness. Windows closed. Curtains moved. The block felt like a jury room after new evidence. In the hallway, neighbors whispered and passed phones, replaying clips. The chairwoman cleared her throat, warned about drones, and reminded everyone the rules applied to animals and adults alike. I nodded, ready to let numbers speak louder than rumors. Justice waited outside the meeting room. Tuesday arrived with coffee, folders, and a hum in the air. The board would decide whose dog owned the noise, and whether the sky could deliver the truth. The community center smelled like burnt coffee and lemon cleaner. Folding chairs formed a crooked courtroom, and the HOA board sat behind a plastic table like judges on a picnic. My neighbor arrived first, clutching her rulebook and a stack of printed screenshots from the night the police came. She smiled at the chairwoman and didn't look at me. Next case, the chairwoman said. Animal disturbance. My neighbor stood. She spoke about consistent noise, aggressive breeds, and fear. She played a grainy video where Atlas barked once at a raccoon. The clip ended right before Princess began her siren song. Convenient editing is a powerful art. I waited until the timer beeped. Then I rolled my backpack forward and plugged in a small speaker. I brought a timeline, I said, and a soundtrack. I played the first file. 10 seconds of silence. One soft woof. Then I showed the graph. A small spike. The board leaned in. I played the second file. 5 minutes of yapping that climbed like a roller coaster. The graph looked like a skyline. Murmurs rippled through the room. A man in the back raised a hand. That's my porch mic. Same pattern. Another neighbor added, mine too. Phones came out. Clips queued up. The case multiplied. The chairwoman frowned at the charts. Property lines? She asked. All recorded from my yard or common space, I said. No windows. No peeking. The treasurer asked about the drone drop. I explained the envelopes were placed on mailboxes in daylight and contained only evidence and a polite note. The room laughed. The mood shifted from tense to theatrical. My neighbor tried to interrupt. He's weaponizing technology. The vice chair replied, he's using a stopwatch. Then came the twist. The HOA manager admitted the complaint log showed 3 warnings tied to my address because the caller reported the shepherd. No one had cross-checked the sound source. The system had trusted the loudest story, not the loudest bark. The board recessed for 5 minutes. When they returned, the chairwoman cleared her throat. We're dismissing the violation against Atlas. We're issuing a notice to Princess's owner for repeated disturbance, with a training recommendation instead of a fine. Gasps. A few claps. My neighbor's face drained of color. This is retaliation, she said. The chairwoman shook her head. This is documentation. Outside, the cul-de-sac felt lighter. Neighbors thanked me for the sky mail. The retired engineer offered to build a shared noise log for the block. Someone joked about drone stamps. As we walked home, Atlas trotted with his tail high. Princess peeked through a curtain and stayed quiet. For the first time in weeks, the street sounded like crickets and grills, not court. But peace never lasts in an HOA. The board had closed the case, but the neighbor had opened a new chapter. The quiet lasted exactly 3 sunsets. On the 4th evening, a new notice appeared on the community board. Technology Use Review, Emergency Session. My name wasn't printed, but the font leaned guilty. The neighbor had pivoted from barking to buzzing. Her new story was about drones threatening privacy, creating hazards, and weaponizing mailboxes. She walked the block again, this time with a petition titled, Protect Our Peace and Airspace. I didn't argue. I prepared. I reread the bylaws like a mystery novel. There it was. No restriction on hobby drones flown over personal property below tree height, as long as cameras weren't aimed into windows, and nothing was dropped on driveways. Mailboxes counted as personal fixtures, but only if opened. Mine had been envelopes placed on the outside lip. A technicality, but rules love technicalities. The emergency session filled faster than the last hearing. Someone brought popcorn. The chairwoman sighed and reminded everyone that we lived in a neighborhood, not a courtroom drama. My neighbor presented her case with slides of propellers and red circles around the word swarm. I presented mine with timestamps, the bylaw paragraph highlighted, and a short clip showing the drones placing envelopes like polite bees. Then the room heard something else. Princess. From the parking lot, the poodle's yaps cut through the windows. A live soundtrack to a policy debate. The treasurer pinched his nose. We're here about drones, he said. And dogs, the vice chair added. They're connected. A compromise formed like a bridge in fog. The board proposed a pilot program, shared sound logs for a month, no fines unless patterns repeated, and a rule that drone flights must stay over the owner's yard, and common greenbelt with visible lights. No more envelope drops. Evidence would be emailed to the HOA instead. I agreed. The neighbor objected. The board voted anyway. Afterward, she cornered me by the soda machine. "You made me the villain," she said. I shook my head. "You made noise the evidence." She stared at Atlas, who sat calmly by my leg. For a second, her shoulders slumped. "I just wanted it quiet," she said. "Me too," I replied. That night, I taped a small sign near my porch. "Sound log active." The retired engineer added one to his fence. 2 others followed. The block turned into a chorus of clipboards. Princess barked twice and stopped. Atlas sniffed the wind and stayed silent. Awareness did what warnings couldn't. A week passed, no calls, no tags, the sky stayed empty. But peace in an HOA is a season, not a climate. And the neighbor wasn't done rewriting the weather. The month ended with a spreadsheet and a surprise. The shared sound logs showed a simple truth. Noise spiked when Princess was left alone, and faded when windows closed and toys appeared. The HOA sent a calm email. No fines, just guidance. A trainer's flyer arrived in every mailbox, and the cul-de-sac exhaled. On a warm Friday, my neighbor walked over without a clipboard. She carried a bag of treats and an apology that felt heavier than paper. "I didn't think anyone would listen unless I shouted," she said. I nodded. Turns out, graphs whisper louder. We stood there while Atlas sat and Princess sniffed, confused but curious. 2 dogs, 1 fence, 0 sirens. The drone stayed grounded, but their shadow lingered as a lesson. Evidence beats drama. Patterns beat panic. The board adopted the pilot program permanently, adding a rule about documenting before dialing. The retired engineer became the unofficial sound czar. Kids named the Greenbelt Quiet Park with chalk. There were still barks. This is life, but no more wars. When a raccoon tipped a trash can at midnight, the group chat shared a clip and a laugh instead of a threat. The chairwoman even joked about issuing cricket permits. Looking back, the conflict wasn't about dogs or drones. It was about control versus community. A call to the cops draws lines. A logbook draws neighbors together. I learned that petty ideas can mature into useful systems if you aim them at the problem, not the person. One evening, as the sun slid behind garages, Princess yipped at a passing skateboard. Atlas glanced at me and waited. I raised a finger. He sat. Princess paused. Silence landed like a coin. My neighbor clapped once, small and sincere. We didn't become friends overnight, but we became neighbors again. The cul-de-sac kept its peace with charts and common sense, and the sky returned to birds. During the pilot month, the board posted weekly updates with plain charts and plain language. People stopped guessing and started noticing patterns. Delivery trucks, skateboards, thunderstorms. Even the dogs learned routines. Naps time to mail runs and treats time to quiet. Complaints turned into check-ins. Instead of sirens, there were doorbells. Instead of tags, there were texts asking, "All good over there?" The neighborhood learned a new trick. Pause, measure, then speak. Small changes made big peace, and big peace made small problems finally feel solvable together. It worked for us when nothing else ever had. So if you ever face a barking battle and a rulebook raised like a sword, remember this. Bring facts, keep it civil, and let the truth travel, whether by email or by a tiny drone with good manners. That's how a poodle, a shepherd, and a swarm turned a feud into a footnote.